doesn't.
You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work. They got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, how you doing? It's Thursday once again, and you are listening to the next era in professional wrestling talk shows. You are listening to WWEC Radio. I'm Tommy Sharp, alongside Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau, as we bring you the NXT post-show and SmackDown pre-show analysis that you deserve. Follow along at nexterawrestling.com. Graham, RJ, it is a pleasure as always, and I wanted to kick things off this week by discussing the events at Payback and your thoughts on the so-called new era in WWE, but that has all been thrown out the window with a shocking NXT debut last night. Gentlemen, let's talk Eric Young.
It's been a whirlwind of a week. Like you said, the Payback pay-per-view on Sunday, Monday's Raw, NXT last night, which was great. Like I always say, Thursday, the greatest day of the week, SmackDown tonight. But the biggest news item of the week, Eric Young, former TNA star, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, has arrived in NXT. We got a lot to talk about here today. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I am only as familiar with Eric Young as I have seen in clips and in other things, not being a diehard TNA fan myself, but I certainly know enough about the man to know that he has history with Samoa Joe. So I'm curious to see what your perspectives are about his arrival at NXT, because I was certainly impressed with everything I saw from him walking out, being strong on the mic, confronting Samoa Joe, in talking about his credentials very nonchalantly, not even really having to put a shine on his credentials necessarily. And here he is in a match that night, a little bit unprecedented for NXT. Usually we see the tease, and then we see a match in the next couple of weeks, following some altercations. But this seemed like battle right off the bat. So what did you all think about the fact that we saw in-ring action as well as a confrontation last night?
I was actually pretty surprised. I knew that Eric Young debuted on NXT. I didn't know when it was airing because they showed the clip. I think it was last week, the week before.
It was on Thursday. It was right after we got done with the show.
Yeah.
You broke the news to me. You broke the news to me, and then I broke the news to Tom. So what was your immediate reaction?
I was kind of shocked, honestly. I've seen Eric Young work before in TNA. I used to watch TNA more frequently back, probably say 5 years ago. But last time I watched TNA, Eric Young was like half of the Knockouts Championship, and I was like, all right, I need to stop watching this. It's just awful. But he's, like you said, he's been doing this for like over 10 years. So like he has the credentials. He knows what he's doing. He's good on the mic, and he's a good, solid in-ring worker. So for NXT, for losing Cruz and Corbin in the main roster, they just plug in a veteran that can just take their spot and just make NXT gel even better than it was before.
I think to quote Kevin Owens, he's been doing this for over 15 years, is Eric Young. And you called TNA there for a second NXT, and that's almost what it's become. I mean, look at Samoa Joe, Eric Young, Bobby Roode at the impending arrival of him, Austin Aries, AJ Styles on the main roster, James Storm for a cup of coffee, and now all these other stars coming in as well, and I can't argue with it.
And still the WWE calls everybody the hottest new free agent, the most must-have superstar on the planet right now. It's interesting that all of these other wrestlers that are now becoming must-see talent are coming from all of these other promotions that, are somewhat harder for people to get their hands on, to know a lot about. You have to really follow these things pretty diligently. And, and we do, and I do myself as much as we can. But to have Eric Young come out last night and say that the only thing in life that is guaranteed is change, I thought that was very telling about the commitment that he's going to be putting forth to going after the NXT title from Samoa Joe?
I think it's the overall big picture. I mean, you mentioned it before, Tom. It's a new era, according to WWE, in the WWE universe right now. I mean, he's not only speaking for NXT, the NXT Championship picture. We saw a lot of change on Sunday's Payback pay-per-view and Monday's Raw. Stephanie and Shane will be running Raw going forward, which we'll get into momentarily as well. But, I mean, there is a lot of change right now going on in NXT, and last night's episode was the prime example of that. You had No Way Jose in action, Austin Aries making his Full Sail University debut, Eric Young wrestling that same night of his debut, which is unprecedented. So a really exciting episode on the whole, and I can't wait to talk about it.
And what did you feel about the fact that Samoa Joe came out on top of their match?
Well, I thought the match itself was good, for one thing. I thought they worked well together. Like you said, they have history from TNA, so it's not the first time that they danced, whatever. I did not mind it personally. I think in any other instance, I would say, you should not have a debuting personality lose their first match, especially as decisively as he did. Samoa Joe didn't cheat, but this is, again, Samoa Joe. He's the Samoan submission machine. He's Joey Samoa. He dominates everyone he steps in the ring with. Just look at Finn Balor. Ask Balor from NXT Lowell from a couple weeks ago. So the fact that he tapped out, I wasn't too upset with that, just because I feel like Young will not get above a certain level in NXT to begin with.
Yeah, well, here's the strategy and the psychology that Eric Young's going to bring to this, because he can absolutely outthink Samoa Joe and really get under Samoa Joe's skin. I think everybody has the ability to get under Samoa Joe's skin, and that's his only vulnerability, is that if you can really piss him off, he's going to make a mistake. And I think Eric Young's mistake was getting anywhere close to a position where he could be put in a submission hold. So going forward, if Eric Young can avoid those submission tactics, I think he's got equally as good of a chance at completely knocking Joe off his feet.
Well, I mean, it was only after he took the
Muscle Buster.
Muscle Buster.
Oh,
Exactly.
no, and that's it, is that if he finds himself vulnerable to the point where he can't prevent a submission hold, he's going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
If he was covered by that Muscle Buster, I want to say he's going to kick out.
Well, I like the fact, too, that I actually kind of like that he lost, just because it puts him at the back of the line. It establishes the narrative that you don't get a title shot from day one. You have to earn your spot in NXT. Eric Young has to go back and face all the Tye Dillingers and the Tommaso Ciampas, all those guys, before getting another opportunity at the NXT Championship. Finn Balor is back next week. What is he going to have to say in his first appearance since losing the NXT Championship 2 weeks ago?
It also speaks to the preparation that everyone at NXT does every single day that might be completely different than what you're doing on your own as a solo performer in another promotion. If you come to NXT and you are thrown into the middle of confronting the NXT champion, expect to be beaten. Expect to do your homework in that match and learn and get a lesson taught to you as to how you might be able to beat that champ going forward, and know that you got to go put the work in to get that spot back for yourself. So I think that entire phrase, his quote, that the only thing in life that's guaranteed is change, is going to be his mantra going forward. And I think it's a positive one for positive change in the NXT title picture. So very excited about Eric Young being around.
Yeah, I thought like Graham said, I thought the match was really good. I thought in ring wise, it looked like Eric Young he hit the elbow. I'm like, oh hey, might actually knock off Joe. Then he got hit with the Muscle Buster and tapped out. So like Graham said, I don't see him getting above that level in NXT. I think he'll just be like another mainstream name that they just tour with. Like, oh, Eric Young's here. And
add to the momentum of the brand.
Momentum. Yeah, I don't think he would get an opportunity over Aries or Shinsuke or Bobby Roode if he ever debuts. So I think it's a good addition for them. Like I said, it's a veteran presence that people would know over like a Baron Corbin or Apollo Crews that went up to the main roster.
And I think too that I'm always kind of reminding myself, not knowing how this is all going to play out, but we have the Global Cruiserweight Championship competition coming up. And
it's going on right now.
It's going on right now. Right. When did it start?
A couple weeks ago. I mean, they've been airing the clips on YouTube.
Right. I'm surprised I completely missed the start of that then. But yeah, with all of that going on, I feel like that mid-level of the roster is going to be pretty much focused on things like that.
Yeah.
And to have more heavyweights around, does make sense now that we have a more heavyweight kind of champion, that some of the bigger guys are going to come out of the woodwork and keep throwing themselves towards that belt. So it's going to be exciting, but the rest of the show last night was equally as exciting. I want to talk about a giant... I'm going to drop a leg drop right now, just as heavy and as hard as Nia Jax did last night on Tessa Blanchard. I thought that leg drop was just so devastating, and Nia Jax's leg drop is devastating. Just the look on her face. After a pretty great back-and-forth match, it was not what I would describe as a squash match, but certainly that power that Nia Jax brings to a leg drop like that. I haven't seen that from any wrestler in the past, I want to say 10 years. I haven't seen such a leg drop that makes me so convinced that that person is completely incapacitated. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Nia Jax now going forward. After she's been here for a while, she's now going up against second-generation superstar Tessa Blanchard, who's looking better in the ring all the time. What are your thoughts? What's the future for both Nia and Tessa?
Well, I think we've talked about it here on the show before. I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, but she has come a long way. I will give her that. I don't know. I feel like she looked good last night. The leg drop looked devastating. Nothing really new on Nia Jax. She didn't look terrible. She didn't look amazing. I thought she looked good in the finish and whatever, and she went over strong. Like you said, it wasn't a complete squash match because Tessa did get in some offense. I can't say, sign her right now. She's amazing because she didn't really do that much in the match. But she's got a good look. She's a second-generation star, so that obviously says something. And, the daughter of a four horsemen for one thing. So I think that definitely speaks volumes to her potential and talent. But I think for Nia Jax, where does she go from here? She's already had her opportunity at the NXT Women's Championship. We saw something teased last week or the week before between her and Asuka. It was last week. So maybe we see that match at TakeOver in June or the special after that, depending on when Bayley invokes a rematch clause. But she looked good last night. I liked Tessa's showing more than Nia Jax, but I think both of them came out of this looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think that Nia Jax has a long way to go if she's going to be any kind of champion in NXT or beyond, but I still feel like just her in-ring presence and just her force that she can put on opponents is always going to give her the leg up or the leg drop down, whatever it's going to be.
Pun intended.
So, I'm starting to become more and more impressed with Nia Jax. And I thought that Tessa, for going up against a totally different opponent than what she's seen so far in the ring, I felt like she grew that much more psychology as to how to take out an opponent like Nia Jax. So, it was a shorter match, but it was a great match. So,
yeah, I thought it was a good match. Like you said, I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan either, but it was good to see Tessa get some offense. And I think with the similar sized opponents, I think she can eventually get up that way against Nia Jax. She's not going to look the greatest because Nia Jax is a beast, so it's hard to beat up someone that size. So I think Nia Jax, like you said, probably face Asuka, or maybe if Bayley uses a rematch, not too soon. But I think right now she's kind of like in that placehold. Like she's not not number one contender, but she's like not far away. Like she's just waiting.
Right.
She's in waiting right now. But I think Tessa Blanchard has a bright future in NXT.
It certainly seems that way. And speaking of another bright future, another name that we mentioned earlier on the show today, No Way Jose, which is getting some elicits immediate dance moves in the studio here. What were your thoughts? We've seen No Way Jose now twice
in the ring.
Twice in the ring. How do you feel? This is our second look at No Way Jose.
I love it. I love it.
It's that one note kind of fun that I always wanted Fandango to just continue forward. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted it to be one note. I don't ever want there to be more. If No Way Jose is always just No Way Jose and it's just one note and dancing and insanity and this guy just dances no matter what, I definitely am on board.
Oh, that's interesting that you say that because I feel like, and I was in the same exact boat just about 2 years ago. It was actually 2 years ago to the day that Adam Rose debuted on Monday Night Raw. Do not ask me how I remember that, but it was. And he never got above a certain level because there really wasn't much known about the character. I guess when they introduced him to Monday Night Raw, and Full Sail University is no WWE, obviously. If you can get over in Full Sail, that does not mean you're going to get over on the main roster. But I was big on Adam Rose. I loved Adam Rose just as much, if not more than I do No Way Jose. But they never really fleshed out the character. We didn't know the motivation. I don't know, but speaking right now, we've only seen him twice. I don't want to go too much analysis.
But they added to Adam Rose's character. They added like a whole train of people.
Yeah.
And
I feel like
and he had this great kind of
Aura.
rapport going on with his crowd.
Yeah.
And it didn't necessarily involve the entire crowd. It was his crowd.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are different, and I totally agree with you. I totally agree that there are tons of similarities between some of these almost
Fandango as well, yeah.
one-note type characters that pop up from time to time. But I love the silly absurdity of No Way Jose. They haven't really gone to that. Like, you have Adam Rose, you have Fandango,
Disco Inferno. You mentioned a couple years ago.
Yeah. But now we have No Way Jose. It's like a phrase. Like, it's like this guy is just a dancing phrase. And if the only thing he ever says on the mic ever is No Way Jose, he'll go down as one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I want 30 years of No Way Jose, and the only 3 things he's ever said on the mic is No Way Jose in every match or in any interview, anything. I just want it to be absurd, but it's not going to be. But we'll see. We've only seen him twice now. He's definitely fun to watch, and it's colorful. It's fun. That's what I'm in for.
It's just, it feels interactive. Like, you hear that music, and I just get up and dance every single time he comes out to the ring and his vignettes play and stuff like that. Got the greatest music I've ever heard. But like you said, I feel like Fandango took some time for people to get into the character. Adam Rose, the same thing. No Way Jose, that music hits. The whole crowd went nuts, and they've never seen the character in this incarnation before. They've probably seen whatever the guy's real name is, wrestle as a developmental guy, whatever. But in this character, this was his debut in Full Sail, and they stuck to it immediately. They ate up the mannerisms. They ate up every aspect of that character. And I loved, and RJ, you texted me about this, the No Way, Jose, Jose, Jose. Those chants, that was great. That was really good. So good. So, again, I feel like if they can add more to the character over time, it would be good. They did pull a Fallout video on the WWE YouTube channel of him talking for like a minute about his debut in Full Sail, which was good. He's not the greatest talker. That's something that improves over time.
No more talking.
On TV, yeah, I feel like...
No talking.
He doesn't need to talk. He just dances.
All he needs to say,
dance.
Hips don't lie. That's what Corey Graves said on commentary last night. Hips don't lie. And I love Corey Graves.
Love Corey Graves.
Let the hips do the talking.
No Way Jose. Absolutely hysterical and ridiculous and everything that makes professional wrestling fun. So that's why. And third time's a charm. Adam Rose or Fandango. And now the crowd is ready to dance again. So, at least there is some common ground that the WWE has built for themselves to introduce. And even the Funkadactyls, right?
I was going to say Brodus Clay just came to mind.
Brodus Clay, I mean, the
Sweet tea.
The dancing motif has always been kind of it's
sports entertainment
of sports entertainment, and it's part of their philosophy of having a true variety show of things. So it's great to see. I think characters like that, when they can work, and clearly they work better at NXT than they necessarily do traveling with the main roster. I think that's a great home for those things. But how will they evolve? That will be determined over time. What will also be determined over time will be how quickly Austin Aries, the greatest man that has ever lived, will rise to the top of the division at NXT, defeating Tye Dillinger last night. That was a really great match. That 450 splash was something else. Coming off that rolling elbow, too. Just really quick hits, devastating maneuvers, flawless execution. What did you think? I thought Tye Dillinger also looked quite good in that match, and he looks better every week. He is a thorn in a lot of people's side right now, and to be a thorn in Austin Aries' side, I can't say I love this matchup, I love it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was texting Graham. I thought Tye Dillinger was way over last night with the crowd. He looked really good, too. I thought he's over that. I feel like he obviously is an enhancement talent. He loses every week, but, he's starting to get that, momentum from the crowd. I think eventually they might actually turn him into something that's actually good.
Start doing something with him.
I think he's over. He's good enough in the ring. It's not like he's a total waste and they just bring people out to beat him up. I think he's really good. And his character's developed a ton. I thought last night he outshined Austin Aries from the crowd. They were all eating up Tye Dillinger, and they kind of weren't showing any love for Austin Aries to the very end. But like I was saying to Graham, when we went to NXT Lowell, they were all over Mandy Andrade, and Aries kind of just was there. They were eating him up. And
this is the greatest man who ever lived.
The greatest man that ever lived. Just didn't even get
not just some jabroni.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, Austin Aries looked really good. I think he'll probably turn heel
at some point.
At some point, because they really don't have any heels besides Dillinger and Samoa Joe. So
Dillinger, Samoa Joe,
and Elias Sampson. Forgot Elias Sampson, but who gives a crap? But I think Austin Aries looked really good.
The Drifter.
The Drifter.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, Aries looked good. I think, like you said, something will be in the change down the road.
Yeah, it's speaking of the Drifter, only for a moment, it shocked me. My friend Brian, who just recently got back into watching and got caught up with everything that's going on, he was loving everything that was going on with the Drifters. Terrible song play. Just loved this whole like idea of this just like train riding hobo drifter man just hanging out on street corners before the shows and playing guitar and then going in for his match. He just ate it up, and I was just like, really? Out of all the things that you could get caught up on.
It's the Drifter.
So the shout out to Brian. You know, I'll give the Drifter another shot.
That's surprising. Well, speaking of the Drifter, here's the thing too, because Dillinger's been here. God, I remember him doing squash matches in the revamped ECW against Finlay in 2008.
Totally.
Years ago.
Totally.
And the guy's been a part of the system for years now, and they're finally giving him a chance with this 10-count gimmick, which is awesome. But the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that he shines in every match that he's involved in versus Samoa Joe, Austin Aries. We talked about it a few weeks ago against Shinsuke Nakamura. Very fun match. Yet they're not doing more with him. Yet a guy like Elias Sampson, who's also at that jobber-esque level, and I said that in quotation marks, he's winning more matches more consistently than Tye Dillinger is. And he's way more over Dillinger. He's way more popular than Elias Sampson is. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No. Some of the logic and all of that, it's got to be however that all shakes out behind the scenes, or whoever's thinking about what they're going to film next or what that means, because they probably do blocks of filming.
Yeah.
So some of it's done on the same day and broken up over different weeks and things like that. So someone's got some giant whiteboard with all of these lines and things figured out of how all that works.
How it all connects.
And it is like when you get down to the minutia of it, I think most things you can break apart and figure out that they don't totally make sense. And that's definitely one of them, because I think that Tye Dillinger should, be a little bit more on the rise.
At least winning matches. I don't say it's their win championships, but he's a win matches.
NXT, the only flaw with NXT I see right now is that they do rely a little bit too much on the surprise debut and what that story does to just kind of sweep the entire NXT universe up in just that new thing that's going on.
It's been happening a lot lately, too.
Yeah, it really has. And on the main roster, and and we'll be getting to that for sure. So it is interesting to see the way that every week possibly shakes up the entire foundation of what we're looking at, So Tye Dillinger, Elias Sampson, I sincerely hope that's where that real world competition must come in behind the scenes. Who's working the hardest, who's showing up every day ready to go, who's putting on those A-plus matches. Even if Elias Sampson is getting the nod, if Tye Dillinger continues to outshine as much as he possibly can and be a perfect 10, who's to say that doesn't win out over time? So it'll be the crowd, again, that determines like who's going to make those next spots happen. So
I think Jason Jordan was in that boat for a long time, too. A guy that was a part of the WWE system for years. And finally didn't get a shot until literally just last month.
You saw the emotion after he won the titles. You could see the true toll of all of that work. And that just watching that one segment backstage with American Alpha, that is why wins and losses matter. And, shout out to the big guy for, saying what he had to say, right or wrong. Plenty of holes you can poke on either side of the Ryback's posts that he made on his Tumblr page. But I respect him for talking about his work from the workers' perspective and from how the sacrifices that go into it. That will never change. How it's compensated, how it's determined, how it's decided, that's for the birds. That's for some financial people that I don't care to associate with. Speaking of people I don't care to associate with, the Revival defeated the Hype Bros last night with the Shatter Machine for the win. They're so impressive. I want to hate them so much. But they go hard all day, all night. So.
Say yeah. Great theme.
The Hype Bros came out, with as much hyped up energy as they normally do, but I just knew right from the start that the Revival was going to have their number. And so what did y'all think about the Revival in the ring last week?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Just because we talked about it last week, I loved how the Revival beat their opponents last week in NXT. They said, we are out to get back our NXT Tag Team Championships. We will stop at nothing until we have those titles back in our grasp. Literally the next match, they attack the Hype Bros. And literally the next week, they have their match against the Hype Bros, and they beat them. There's no waiting a couple weeks. This is not a month from now. They're like following up on an angle they did 2 months earlier, which they can do from time to time because, like you said, they schedule and they tape things so out of order sometimes. But I liked it. A lot of great consistency. The match was kept short, sweet, a dominant win for the Revival en route to capturing their NXT Tag Team titles and regaining the gold, which hopefully we get the rematch at TakeOver next month, which could be a lot of fun. We saw it at TakeOver. We saw the match at NXT Lowell, and they had 2 very, very good matches, and American Alpha better be ready. They better be ready, willing, and Gable.
Well put. Extremely well put. RJ, how did you feel the Hype Bros did offensively and even defensively against what the Revival was doing? Because the Revival can be pretty underhanded in everything they do.
I think the Hype Bros looked somewhat decent, but like you said, they just don't have what it takes to beat the Revival. I think the Revival is easily the second best team in NXT. They have the grit. They have like that tough mentality. They don't care who it is. They're gonna isolate that body part and just like keep hammering it in. And I don't know if Mojo and Zack Ryder are there yet as a team. Like you said, they've been teaming for a while now. I thought they were gonna go to the main roster, but they kind of kept them down. But the Revival's a new thing that, like you said, I want to hate them, but they're just so.
I know.
Damn it! They're so technical and like
so good.
You just want to cheer for them because like they're just so. I don't even know how to say it. They're just so good.
They're so good. They're so good. I had some thoughts about the Hype Bros, about like what's missing from their report. They come in with so much energy.
They're hyped.
They're hyped.
They don't get hyped. They stay hyped.
They stay hyped, but they need to be more hyped. They need to be more hyped if they're gonna beat someone like the Revival and then even think that they have a shot to match American Alpha. So here's what I was thinking for the Hype Bros. They need to do some old school Super Mario Brothers tactics. They need to find some kind of magic potion that they can drink during their match that gives them a total power up and that makes them run around twice as fast, and then they will squash everybody in sight. But if they lose their momentum or if they get knocked down, they shrink down to about 4 feet tall.
So who's Princess Peach in this situation?
Mojo.
I definitely Mojo.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was gonna say Mario Luigi and then bring in a diva as Peach.
Yeah, that's true.
Carmella's free. Tessa Blanchard.
Do not put her with that.
Who would be Toad then?
Toad? Hornswoggle free.
I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna kick that one over to the Rage. That is Alex Riley. Rage. He would be my number one pick for Toad. For Toad. Speaking of Alex Riley, go ahead.
Rage.
Talk to me about Alex Riley.
Well, I think he's great.
What's coming up next for NXT in regards to the man that everybody's talking about, Alex Riley?
I think he's awesome. He's underrated. He should be NXT champion. Okay, kid. Happy birthday to Alex Riley. It was his birthday last week here on the show. I forgot to say it. I should have wished him a happy birthday. He was too busy getting in Twitter fights with the Solomonster, actually, on his birthday, which was weird. But anyway, Alex Riley in action next week against Shinsuke Nakamura. Really not much more to say here. He just said, I guess the main question in everyone's mind after watching this promo is, how is this guy still employed? Is he even still employed? Because he hasn't been shown on TV since he lost to Tye Dillinger 2 months ago, which I stupidly thought was going to lead to something, and it didn't. It was a complete waste of time. But I thought it was fine. I mean, he's just, being built up, quote unquote, to say, establish his credibility, only to be dominated by Shinsuke Nakamura. So even if you don't like Alex Riley, which I know I'm the only fan of A-Riley in the room right now, you get to see his teeth get knocked down his throat by the Kumosa!
And
I
never mind seeing that ever. I think that is why I love Alex Riley in the end, is because he is the best punching bag I've ever seen in my life. You just want to punch that bag of a face of his all day long, and I can't wait for Shinsuke Nakamura to rub it into his face, to strut around the ring like Mick Jagger, and completely embarrass Alex Riley, who's going to have so much rage, he's going to just be knocking into post after post outside, just all on his own, just completely bouncing off the walls and missing his target every time. So I think it's great to see a build-up for that. I think it's great that Shinsuke Nakamura elicits a build-up from literally every opponent that he has worked with so far. Mm-hmm. The narrative behind Shinsuke Nakamura being in NXT has been one of the most hard-hitting, combative, and just flagrantly out there kind of competitions that he generates, and he has barely said a word. Much like Asuka, barely said a word. Doesn't need to. Actions speak louder than words, and I think that's why Alex Riley is going to be the most vocal blabbermouth in this scenario, and Shinsuke Nakamura is just going to style and profile.
I cannot wait for Strong Style to arrive at Full Sail University. I'm getting goosebumps right now just think of the reaction that he's going to get from that crowd when he arrives next week against Alex Riley. RJ, what is Corey Graves going to say when Nakamura hits that knee against Riley next week?
I forget, was it
Kimosai?
Kimosai! Goes nuts for it
Something
every
like
time.
that.
It's just funny because like he's a heel announcer, but for certain faces, like he'll just flip flop right over.
It's like his version of Ball Game for JBL.
Yeah.
Ball Game! So
Love
great.
it. It's
Love
great.
it. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that next week. That and the return of Finn Balor. That should be great too. A lot to look forward to in NXT next week. I think that we have the return of Balor, the kickoff for NXT TakeOver in about a month, which they have not yet announced yet. So I'm interested to see. I mean, this was a very fun show, but not a lot was set in motion for what we're going to get at TakeOver in a little over a month. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be on June 8th, which I think is a Wednesday. So that being said, it's going to be interesting to see how that card shapes up. And we kind of already know Bayley Asuka, Balor Joe, a lot of the rematches from TakeOver, Revival, American Alpha, and maybe a few other guys like Nakamura, Aries, and whatever. Eric Young maybe too. So I guess we'll see. But I mean, it's weird because they never even mention it. We don't even know officially that a TakeOver is happening. I'm just assuming. I think I read something about a week ago, but nothing has been announced so far. And usually by this point, we have a better idea of what we're getting at TakeOver. So hopefully starting next week, Eric Young's here. Noah Jose is debuted after Nakamura debuts in Full Sail. Austin Aries is here. We start to set our sights on TakeOver in a little over a month.
Unbelievable that it is already. Payback is behind us. TakeOver is upon us, and we're right back into the cycle in this new era of professional wrestling. So maybe we should dive in a little bit into that, talk a little bit about Payback, talk about a little about this new era, and what do you all think about the fact that they're branding it this way?
I mean, well, first of all, I got to note this because RJ, you mentioned this to me on Sunday, and then you said it to me, Tom, the other day when I first saw you after Payback. I know you didn't watch the full show initially, but you did watch the first match. New era, it's going to be a great thing. It's a new era, new talent, new fresh faces. Enzo Amore gets hurt in the first freaking match. Like, I mean, I know that's not something. It's not like a missed booking opportunity, but it wasn't a good sign for the new era. But I thought overall the show was really good, which we'll talk about. But this new era, I want to say it's a new era because we've been talking about this for weeks. The quality of Raw, SmackDown, even NXT has been even better than it was before Mania. I want to believe that this is a new time in WWE with Enzo and Cass, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin. You have Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, all these fresh faces on the main roster, all making strides, and even guys like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, all flourishing in their respective feuds. I want to think it's a new era, but when they shove it down our throats, a la the Divas Revolution, it doesn't feel like a new era. They're just trying to tell us it's a new era. Don't tell us it's a new era. Show us it's a new era.
I think that you show that, much like we've talked about off the books here, is that you show that by changing the visual aesthetic. I think that when you say it's a new era, and your pay-per-views pretty much only reflect that with the different graphic design, but the stage design remains the same. The in-ring curtains remain the same. The placement of the announce tables remain the same. The song at the top remains the same for Raw, for SmackDown. The colors haven't changed. And this just totally bucks against the traditions that the WWE have done themselves. They have not shied away from introducing entire new stages for the original incarnation of Monday Night Raw, which was, much more ECW looking in theater design with a huge early 90s flair to it.
Manhattan Center, yep.
Lots of neon lights and things like that, to the Attitude Era Raw design with, the firework missiles hitting the stage with massive explosions, barbed wire, like very scratchboard looking logos, and just gritty 90s grunge type overtones to the whole thing. And then into the Ruthless Aggression era, a lot more polish, all the way to the PG era where we have even more polish. So to say that this is a new era of competition, that's not untrue. But to say this is a new era in the WWE, it certainly doesn't feel that way yet. And with the announcement coming out of Payback that Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon now share some kind of joint custody over how Raw is booked and controlled, it doesn't seem to be shaking up many things too much at all. With Stephanie's pull in her direction towards her ideas and Shane's pull towards what we've seen in the past couple of weeks, I don't really know that we're going to see what this new era could truly do or be, because we are still pulled in both directions.
Is this the year 2000 with the McMahons in charge? Is this 2006, 2008? I mean, we've seen the McMahons in charge before. I just want not that we don't need to have any authority figures, but I mean, we can have a Jack Tunney-like figure, and they're doing it right now in NXT with a guy like William Regal, who's not on every single show. He shows up when it means something, when he has something to deliver that has a purpose, and he just doesn't show up to take up 20 minutes of the opening of the show. And I think, in theory, it can be a good idea. I mean, we talked about it on Sunday, RJ. I like Shane. Stephanie is great in her role. She deserves a lot of credit. They can have some fun with this little angle of brother versus sister in charge of Raw, as long as they don't get overexposed, a lot like the Authority did. And I think, like you said, Tom, aesthetically, and they've not shied away from this in the past, like you said, Tommy, in that they have changed up the layout before. Raw is War. They weren't coming out every single week saying, "Oh, this is the Attitude Era." No, it felt like the Attitude Era. That's why people they coined it the Attitude Era. And I have to ask you this: do you feel like at this point in time, not that Vince has always been afraid of change, but in his old age, do you feel that he is afraid of change at this point in time?
I really don't. I mean, if you look at his work on Camp WWE, if you look at some of the things that he said very frankly and candidly on the Stone Cold podcast, only about a year ago, most of those things have stayed the course and have completely come true. I think structurally, the way that they present a lot of these things, from what I've read, from what we've seen and what we know, they roll these things out so slowly. Look at the logo change. The Scratchboard Attitude Era logo hung on for how many years? Beyond
15 years?
Beyond the original WWF logo, and then changing to WWE, and when they were forced to change to WWE, they still kept the Scratchboard logo.
I mean, even look at recently the change from Divas Division of women's wrestling.
It took
forever, but it's finally happened. Okay, yeah.
So I feel like for whatever reason they have invested in those aesthetic props and in what they've built and on all of that in the production side of things, and they do not want to go for some reason and change Raw and SmackDown to look completely different. Mm-hmm. They have no problem doing this once a month with creating brand new everything in advertising and design for their main pay-per-views.
But they still have yet to change up the stage.
The
like
stage has
that
not.
Bothers me.
The only thing
SummerSlam,
there is. The only thing different that usually the pay-per-views don't have a ramp.
That's the only thing. That's it.
The only difference.
For SummerSlam, I felt like, okay, I know they only do it with WrestleMania, but SummerSlam is like the WrestleMania of the summer. So they'll at least do something for SummerSlam, and it was the same thing. It felt like we were at Raw.
It felt like we were at Raw. And anytime, at this point, if you're not outside, it just doesn't feel different.
Yeah,
if it's indoors, it might as well be Monday. I mean, for a lot of these guys too, and sometimes for how the matches are, it feels like it might as well be Monday.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna reserve judgment here. I think that they just started this and they're trying to get buzz and momentum built around it now. If they debut all the surprises up front, then they lose the impact of really building an audience to see a big change. But they got to do it at some point.
Yeah, I think they, like you said, they need a change. It's not like they need a huge change, but like you said, you need a new era. You can't just say like, "Oh, new era, same stuff as it was before."
But I truly don't want to believe that they are that pandering and think that little of our intelligence. I truly want to believe that they are playing to our strengths and they have something really cool that they want to do and they want us to go along for the ride. That's me being as positive as I can about the whole thing. The other side of the coin is much easier to dismiss. It's much easier to say, you've spent all your money hiring all this new talent that the internet has told you to go out and hire, and now you just want us to pay you back by watching it. And that's all, and you're just going to pander to us and tell us that this is all brand new, and it's still the same group of creative writers. It's still Road Dogg. It's still Michael P.S. Hayes.
Hate that, man.
It is what it is.
I feel like if anything...
Oh, but you just don't understand. You have no idea, and blah, 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 and everything else that we don't know.
Give the creative team credit.
Oh, give them credit. They write a terrible show almost every week in and week out there. They write on a street called Bad Street, baby.
God.
Jesus.
Speaking of the Hall of Fame, I am a robot. I had to mention that. That was so funny. We still talk about that when you did that impression after the show a couple weeks ago.
What, Jackie?
Yeah.
Strictly written by Vince McMahon. I swear to God.
Greatest thing.
I am Jacqueline. I am a robot from the future. I was sent here to wrestle and become
Pretty much. He sounded so scripted. It was ridiculous.
Sorry to interrupt you. You continue. I just wanted to...
Public speaking is tough on everybody. I mean, that was an era where, they needed physical competitors. They didn't need people on the mic. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock would come up and chew up like 45 minutes, and then a McMahon would come out, and we'd be into the second hour of Raw before a single match had happened. So I don't think many people needed to develop those mic skills.
Not at that point, no. That's why I cringe when I watch like Attitude Era content on the network. I mean, it's great, but I feel like if you didn't grow up with it, there's not that nostalgia feel. And when I watch it, and I was there, and I watched almost all of it, it's just like, no, but I remember criticizing this when I was a kid and being like, could you please wrestle? There's a reason why we all started watching WCW. Turns out they were wrestling on that show. What a concept.
And Vince at the time was very blatant about being more of a Jerry Springer confrontational show than he was about being a professional wrestling show, because he felt that wrestling had become much like comic books in
passe.
Just kiddie, passe, not something that's going to grip the nation, with a good story. So it wasn't in the wrestling. It wasn't in I'm going to beat you and pin you. It was in I'm going to insult you and I'm going to humiliate you. And WCW was very much about old school wrestling. Georgia wrestling. And it's Ted Turner's. So, it'll be interesting to see what this new era brings. But let's just run down the Payback card here real quick. We'll get into a little bit of Raw, and then that will shape the picture for what we will see tonight. My favorite day of the week. Woo! Thursday night SmackDown. So I want to say that overall our picks for Payback, almost all of them came true. I'm not going to go on record and say, or go down the line and say we called all of this correctly. But I want to say on the whole, I feel like they did a great job at setting up all of these matches to really make sense. And I thought Payback was quite enjoyable. Unfortunately, it did start off with a total miscue, and Enzo Amore got pretty injured, and that was really scary to see. It happened quickly. The match was just getting going, and the momentum was really there. And I thought the Vaudevillians were looking really, really sharp. But what did you all think before Enzo got hurt?
I thought, like you said, the match was starting to really get going, and the Vaudevillians did look really good off the bat. And then, like Ray said, right when he hit the ground, and then, like, the New Day kind of, like, realized it wasn't, like, a joking matter.
Eating popcorn the entire time.
They did not put down their pizza, though. They didn't eat it, but I think they were a little shocked, and then they were holding pizza. And when you get caught holding pizza and you're shocked,
you can't put it down.
You can't really put it down. You don't really know what to do with it. So I didn't blame the New Day. They were in a tough spot. I mean, they were out there to be basically the levity, the comic relief, the levity, and cheerleaders out there. And unfortunately, the whole match comes to a halt, and that's how real wrestling is. I mean. He got taken out by one of those hard coiled ropes and a hit to the back of the head.
Something so basic too.
Yeah, so basic.
It's not like a flippity doo-dah like he did a 450 and he landed on his neck. And he just threw him outside the ring, and one miscue hurt him. It's not Simon's fault. It's not Enzo's fault.
It's not anybody's fault. That's
bad timing.
And that's that ring awareness that can play such a huge factor in the win and loss of a match. Mm-hmm. And now this match has been officially deemed a no contest. Now, does that mean that the Vaudevillains win the no contest because they didn't get disqualified? Or is the match completely a draw?
Well, I thought it was a draw initially. I thought they won the match via referee stoppage. That's what I put in my official result. But then WWE.com said no contest, nobody won, because no official announcement was made after the injury happened, which is understandable in a real-life situation, whatever. But then the next night on Raw, they said they were awarded the number one contendership, and the match is happening at Extreme Rules, New Day Vaudevillains. So it was kind of confusing, but I think at last word, they are the new number one contenders to the twin titles.
And that's what we had predicted going down anyway. Certainly never would have predicted how that match ended up. But that was the first match to kick off Payback proper. Let's jump back real quick and talk about the pre-show a little bit, which I thought my favorite match of the pre-show was hard to pick. We had Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin really going at it, pretty hard hits back and forth very quick on both of that. And then we have Kalisto and Ryback. Ryback coming out doing some controversial things in his intro, but having potentially one of the best Ryback matches I've ever seen him have. He looked fantastic. He looked like he was having fun. And now with the real world fallout of what was going on after or behind the scenes,
Makes sense.
It makes sense, and it's so funny to me that you only see a wrestler's true personality and be like, oh, there it is, that's awesome, do more of that, while they're on their way out.
Because they don't care.
They don't care anymore, and all of a sudden they're going out and doing things that I'm like, if you just did that every day, you would be on top. Because you can see it in your eyes that you're having fun, that even if you're being a heel in this scenario, like, he's still, like, basically, like, saved Kalisto from braining himself jumping out of the ring. You know, Ryback's very aware of his role. Even on his way out, there was no way he was going to let someone purposefully get hurt. And I know he's got back and forthness with CM Punk on the subject, and Punk has his own thoughts on the whole situation that you can hear on Colt Cabana's show. But I thought that to see him truly like save and pull somebody out of harm's way, it speaks to the level of the fact that everyone in those rings is looking out for everybody's safety as much as they possibly can. You know, and they don't want to cause anybody harm, even if they have contract disputes and they're not happy with where they work. They're still going to do everything they can. So I thought Ryback looked awesome, and I wanted to see more of him, and I wanted to see him win the title that night. It would have been a lot of fun, and none of that is what happened. And I just didn't feel like Kalisto really had enough momentum to hit the Salida del Sol and get a pin victory over Ryback, but that's what we saw. And then Dolph Ziggler going over Baron Corbin was a little bit of a surprise for me too. Much kind of like Eric Young being beaten by Samoa Joe last night on NXT. I really expected at least Corbin to, you know, disqualify himself in some way and really attack Dolph Ziggler and just be a general bad guy. But for Dolph Ziggler to get the win, it was a pretty well-fought match. What'd you think?
I thought it was a good pre-show overall. I enjoyed Kalisto Ryback more, a very enjoyable match. For a match I didn't give two craps about going in, I thought they exceeded expectations. The WrestleMania match, no one was even there to see it. No one was in the building at the time. And I thought that match was all right. But this match was a lot better, a vast improvement. Like you said, it's sad that we really don't see the true personalities of these guys until they're on their way out and they just don't care anymore. Like the pre-showstopper thing on his belt was great from Ryback. I thought that was hilarious.
Very hilarious.
So I thought they worked really well together. The crowd ate it up. The whole Goldberg chants and whatever. He got good heat, Ryback did, on his way out. And if that is his final match, he went out on a high note.
High note. There's no shame in going out in a title defense for the U.S. title or a title match for the U.S. title. And
on a pay-per-view.
A pay-per-view, kicking things off. Hey, man, there's something to be said. I've been an opening act. My band has opened for so many different other groups, and it's just something to be said about setting the tone for the night. You know, like it's a really It's a really important role for every show, and I just try to stress to any of the people I book for my shows that it's just like you're opening because I think you're one of the strongest things to get this audience invested. You might not be the super draw. You might not be the best part of the show by leaps and bounds, but you're certainly strong enough to start things off, and I wouldn't want anyone else in the spot. Ryback and Kalisto really are prime examples of what, you know, professional wrestling has always been about. David and Goliath, you know, the underdog versus the beast. It's always a great story, and Ryback really brought that out at Payback, so that was very cool to see.
Something can be said about that, absolutely. I feel like it was a testament to both guys, and the U.S. title's been on the kickoff show for 3 straight pay-per-views now, which
used to be such a prestigious belt.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but like you said, I mean, at least in terms of this match, at least as far as this match goes, they kicked off the night on a high note, going into the night, going into Extreme Rules, the actual main card. But yeah, I was thinking the other day, and I talked to you, Tommy, about this just 2 days ago, Ryback's best WWE matches. Is he a bad wrestler? No, but he's not had many great matches. And the only match that came to mind was the match that he had with The Shield in Team Hell No at TLC 2012, that TLC match. Other than that, there's not many great matches, and I thought this was not even a very good match. I thought it was a great match, and I thought Corbin and Ziggler had a good match too. And it had the opposite effect for me from Samoa Joe, Eric Young. I didn't mind Eric Young losing clean to Samoa Joe because for the aforementioned reasons. For this one, I thought, I mean, it was a surprise. It took me by surprise, but in a bad way, because I feel like Corbin had to win this match. He's been in the main roster for a month. He suffered 2 losses in NXT over the course of a year and a half. In WWE, he loses his first match in the matter of a month to Dolph Ziggler, of all people, who hasn't been relevant in a long time. He has credibility. It's not like he's Zack Ryder or something, but he just, I don't know. I didn't like it. I thought it was an all right swerve, but I just wasn't a fan of the finish.
No, I agree. How'd you feel about that, RJ?
I thought the finish was awful. Like, me and Graham just looked at each
Crap
other
all over
and
there.
shook our heads. But
why?
I thought, like you said, Ryback has had a lot of great matches, but I thought the one on the pre-show was really good. I thought it was probably one of the best that I've seen. Like you said, the TLC match is one that comes to note that was really good for him. But definitely that match on Payback was way better than one at WrestleMania. I thought it was very intriguing. At one point, you thought Ryback actually might win after he did the
Gorilla Press?
Gorilla Press, and I think he did the jump, too.
Yeah.
The Frog Splash.
He did the
He
frog
missed,
splash,
yeah.
he missed. But I thought, like you said, I thought it was a really good match. I actually thought Ryback had a chance to win. So I'd say it was probably one of his best matches I've ever seen.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. Easily. I mean, and we'll blast through the Payback card here real quick, because a lot of what happened on Payback actually, had some consequences for what we saw on Raw, and that's going to filter into what we see tonight. But Owens went over Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn had finally their big in-ring confrontation, and that was fantastic to see. The Miz, as we predicted, bested Cesaro and retained the Intercontinental Championship. I can't say that the Miz didn't totally deserve it, but he didn't. And Ambrose got a win over Chris Jericho. That was a killer match. Charlotte went over Natalya in the what screw job are we on? I think
67.
67 and counting screw job for the
By Lil Nate.
By Little Nate.
Good match though. Good match.
Know,
Just,
and,
I don't
and
like
Charlotte addressed that on Monday as well. And Roman Reigns beat AJ Styles with his fake Superman punch and spear. And that was definitely an interesting match. I mean, it was phenomenal competition. That was a true main event, and to just know how much all the heat and heaping amounts of heat that is always thrown at Roman Reigns for AJ Styles to walk in there and own the room the way he did. That was very cool to see.
I mean, when you put it that way, when you go down the card from top to bottom, every match was either good to great. I didn't approve of some of the finishes, or at least I like Charlotte retaining. I just don't like how it happened.
And this is the whole thing about our show, about being wrestling fans. We can nitpick it all day long, but that does not mean that every second wasn't super enjoyable while we were watching it. And it's fun to shake your head and go, I don't understand why that person won, but much like in every other sport, it's just like, man, I don't understand how the Sox could have been up, and then in the 7th inning they get, down by 4, and then they lose the game. And you're just like, I just spent 3 hours watching this. How'd you lose? That's kind of that feeling that we get as professional wrestling fans when the finishes don't quite make sense to us, or how this is going to shape up, or if it just disappears, and we just don't know. So the fact that we had such a solid card, the fact that a lot of these matches, like you just said, Graham, were good to great, it speaks to what this new era might, be more about mentally for the performers than necessarily for the aesthetic for the viewers.
I thought overall, like I said, a very enjoyable event that it lived up to my expectations. Like I said, I didn't love every minute of the show. Montreal Screwjob, Corbin losing, the Enzo injury, that wasn't like a missed booking opportunity. Like I said,
no, Roman Reigns in general.
It was a very good main event, though. I thought it was a very good main event. Yeah.
It was very good.
The whole overbooking of the finish of with Shane coming out and Stephanie and the Usos and that stuff, that was expected. Hopefully the new regime of Stephanie and Shane doesn't overshadow everything on the show. But other than that, I mean, we're getting a rematch in just less than 3 weeks at Extreme Rules. That should be a killer match, too. No disqualifications, no countouts, one winner, one champion, Reigns or Styles. That should be great. There's a lot to look forward to, and now that's why I look forward to SmackDown tonight.
Yeah, and there was a lot of fallout from Payback leading into Monday. We certainly saw Kevin Owens come out and confront Shane and Stephanie, and be quickly greeted by Cesaro, who was just ready to go. The Swiss Superman just rips off his James Bond outfit, and he's ready to be WrestleMan, and it's the best in the world. I love Cesaro. Man, his uppercuts just look more devastating all the time. But coming off a loss to The Miz, it looks like the crowd lost absolutely zero respect for Cesaro. They were as into it as I've ever seen a crowd be specifically into just Cesaro. And the idea that the whole Cesaro section has relatively died down in like just being vocally in front of the cameras anyway. He came out to a huge pop, and he is just a known threat. Big superstar, big deal. And like Kevin Owens, of course, there's no way that you're ready to take on the strength that is Cesaro. So that was really cool to see. We got to see a little bit of an acknowledgement from Charlotte about the whole situation, which was as bogus as it possibly could be. And when we saw Rusev become the new #1 contender to the U.S. Championship. He's been in that spot before. It'd be interesting to see how that lines up potentially with John Cena coming back. Whether that's something that is on John Cena's radar at all, or maybe he's coming back to go straight to the top. It seems to be what Cena likes to do. So we'll see how things go over there. But we did see the New Day come out with a solo Big Cass to fight the Vaudevillians and the Dudleys.
A bunch of fugazis.
And that was really the first time I feel like I've definitively seen the WWE cast the New Day as the total babyface team. They paired babyface with babyface, and clearly Vaudevillians and Dudleys are the heels. So that really said a lot about how they feel about the WWE Tag Team Championship.
Absolutely.
What'd you think about the fact that they had Big Cass? How'd you feel about Cass coming out on the mic just on his own and then being part of that match, having no hype machine of Enzo running around the ring?
I mean, we've been critical before about Big Cass as a solo guy, specifically on the mic, because I feel like he was just finding his footing on the mic when he got called up to the main roster. He's always been a great talker, but I feel like he was never truly comfortable in NXT on the mic until the very, very end. Then they put him in the main roster in front of tens of thousands of people every single week, and it seems like he looks in the camera and he doesn't look confident. Like, I hear what he's saying, and some of the lines they script for him aren't always great, which is always the case with pretty much everybody in the roster because the writing team sucks sometimes. But he doesn't look confident when he talks, and I thought we got a better Cass on Monday night than we usually do. So maybe that, the whole injury is a blessing in disguise. Not to say it's a good thing that he got hurt, but I feel like he can finally shine on his own. Not to say he's going to become a world champion.
Push him to the
or
top.
Yeah. No, God, I'm not going to say that, but I will say I feel like this is the chance for him to shine on his own, a la like he did a couple years ago when Enzo got hurt. I think he broke his leg or something. And I don't know if you recall this time, or we got like singing contests with like Aiden English and stuff, and we got a little bit of that on Monday night, or no? Oh no, Aiden's song, Aiden English song, something.
WWE.
Yeah, something like that on Monday. But a New Day are always great, but I got to do this too because I know this is their final in studio show, so I got to say this. RJ, we're gonna go around the horn here like Ready, Willing, and Gable. Bootios.
They make sure.
You ain't booty.
I love it. I'll take that soundbite and use it for my intro going forward. I'm going to use it as my ringtone. But anyway, no, I thought the whole match was good. And I think I don't know what the immediate direction is going forward. Obviously, we have New Day versus Vaudevillains. What do you do with Big Cass and the Dudley Boys in the meantime? We didn't get an answer to that on Monday, but they filled the time nicely with that 8-man tag team match.
Yes. And speaking of Bootios, the proud sponsor of the WWE, I finally got my box of Bootios for my birthday.
Woo!
I'm psyched to
When's
have
your birthday?
It was a couple weeks ago.
What? How do we not know about this?
I don't really talk about myself like that. Bootios.
Put yourself over. Oh,
yeah. See, I get everybody back, but it was all worth it to get my friend Ben got me a box of Bootios. I couldn't have been happier. I was like, this is the best
I need
in the
my
world.
Bootios.
Best in
I
the
eat my
world.
Bootios every morning, but I need my actual Bootios.
Yes, yeah.
And
I stopped saying my prayers and doing my homework. I strictly eat Bootios.
Take that, Hulk Hogan.
Take
Take
that.
that, Hulk Hogan, you racist.
So we had.
That's why he doesn't like New Day. That makes sense now.
Yeah, that's true. Now, speaking of bad situations to worse, we saw Emma come out and take on Becky. What did you think about Emma coming out? It's just all about Emma. It's all about her. So she's becoming a force to reckon with for sure. So what did you think specifically about Emma? Becky Lynch always looks fantastic in the ring, so I really don't have anything to say about Becky Lynch other than heaping amounts of praise for her in-ring work.
I thought Emma looked really good on us. I think as a heel, she's starting to really get her footing as like a top heel in the women's division. I think she's, like you said, she's a heel, so it's not like she's going to go for the title anytime soon because of Charlotte, but I think she can be a big-time player down the line. I think they've finally given her that. I think they screwed up the first time with her. I think the whole bubbly thing had its moment, and they kind of just like, throw you with Santina Marella. I hope you can dance every week. So I think that just totally screwed her up. But I think as a heel, I think she could definitely be a women's champion down the line.
I mean, the whole look that she comes out to the ring with now is just, and she's been doing it since NXT, with Dana Brooke. It's been a lot of fun. The fact that she's a little bit more cold on the main roster, she doesn't talk as much, she doesn't try to like crack as many jokes, kind of like snide, humiliating kind of jokes. She comes out, and for someone like Becky Lynch, who is just all about posture, poise, respect, just hardworking individual.
Perfect foil.
Emma is ready to take the easy way out, to gloat about it while she's taking the easy way out, and to rub it into your face. So I think that Emma is starting to really build this new tier of villains that the baby faces in the women's division are going to have to go up against. And tonight on SmackDown, we are going to see some of that action. We are going to see Natalya and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte and Emma. What a pairing. To know that Charlotte is secure in her role as the women's champion, to have someone like Emma by her side, to do even more of the dirty work that Ric Flair is usually there to catch up and soak up a little bit, that's going to be a super fun match tonight. I'm seriously looking forward, out of anything that's been announced so far, I'm looking forward to that one the most.
That should be a really good match.
Yeah.
I think just alone, Emma's great. I mean, I think Becky speaks for herself, but I mean, one gripe of mine that's been over the last couple of weeks is the fact that this feud has been pretty much non-existent on WWE TV. If you follow WWE on YouTube, you've seen the clips. I do what I want from Becky Lynch, which was great when she's like eating salad with chopstick, which was hilarious, by the way. We've seen it there on Twitter. They talk to each other like backstage on SmackDown. We talked about that a couple weeks ago too. I mean, it just, I don't know. They weren't on Raw.
Saving it, just saving it like longevity wise.
Maybe. I mean, we finally got the first glimpse, like preview of it. Yeah, match between them on Monday's Raw, which I thought was good. It was good while it lasted. Emma,
to win.
Using underhanded tactics. Absolutely, exactly, furthering the feud. And then maybe we get, maybe Becky wins another match, and they set up the rubber match for Extreme Rules. Yeah, it's possible. So I think I like the fact that it's kicking off now.
Yeah, and I like the fact that each one of these wrestlers in the women's division, they are rock stars. They are their own entity. The team network of things has more or less completely fallen apart, and now you have this landscape of people that are in it for the respect and hard work, and you have this landscape of people that are going to just undermine the people that are working hard so that they can shoot to the top faster. That is the best kind of competition. You can't write a better story than that. It just exists that way because that's who they are. And I'm excited to see more sides of their personality come out in the backstage interviews throughout all the different channels, and watch that all build up to a big, interesting picture for the entire landscape there. So going into tonight, we also saw AJ Styles team up with Gallows and Anderson against Reigns and the Usos on Monday. So going into tonight, we're going to see a follow-up match, the continuation of the Usos and Anderson and Gallows story. Hard-hitting, incredible that AJ, Gallows, and Anderson completely got a win over Reigns and the Usos. I was very excited about that. It was a great way to end Raw, especially if they're going to sell this whole new era of things. I definitely wasn't expecting a win from AJ, Gallows, and Anderson. So what were you expecting going into that match? Who did you see winning that?
I mean, that was the highlight of Raw for me. I thought it was a good standard show overall. Not a lot of exciting moments or returns or whatever. There were some dull moments, but I thought overall it was a solid show, capped off by a really, really good main event. And that's the match I think we've all been waiting to see ever since Gallows and Anderson arrived on the scene, is Styles and his former Bullet Club members. As the commentator said, I wish they would have advertised this match a week out and make it feel more meaningful. And I wish they would have advertised the rematch for SmackDown. I'm just assuming, like you said, we're having part 2 tonight. but it really hasn't been advertised in any meaningful capacity other than the website. But they did mention on Monday's Raw that marked the first time that Styles, Gallows, and Anderson teamed up in 6-person tag team action since August of last year in New Japan. So it made it feel meaningful. It felt special for the casual viewer. People like us who have been following these guys forever made it feel meaningful and cool, and like I'm looking forward to it. The rematch tonight should be good. And I think just overall, I think the rematch at Extreme Rules is going to be really, really good. If Sunday, what we saw on Sunday at Payback was any indication. Yeah,
absolutely. What were your thoughts about Gallows and Anderson versus the Usos specifically? I know we've seen brief hints of it. We've seen AJ versus Reigns a little bit more in the ring than we've seen Gallows and Anderson. What are your thoughts right now about how they stack up against the tenured Usos?
I think it's kind of like, I feel like when I look at Gallows and Anderson, look at the Revival, they're like more technical and more hard hitting, and the Usos just like fast, super kick everywhere, over the top rope. Their arsenal's amazing. I think it's more of like a fast paced versus more technical. So I think it's gonna be a really good match. I think they gel well together since we saw them, I think 3 or 2 weeks ago when they faced on Raw
against the Usos.
Yeah,
that was last week.
So I think they're going to have a good match tonight on SmackDown. I think they have good chemistry together, too.
It's interesting the tactics that Gallows and Anderson employ because they have effectively taken all of the focus that the Usos had to even try and become contenders for the Tag Team Championships again and have pretty much made everything about them. The Usos are now so focused on defending their family and, earning that respect and making sure that Gallows and Anderson respect them, that's all that they're thinking about. Whereas Gallows and Anderson, they're as cool as can be. When you see them hanging out with AJ Styles, they're just like, no, man, we're here to have your back. We're going to go out there and fight. They don't seem like they're plotting maniacal evil things. When they go out there in that ring, that's exactly what they look like.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they project. And I want to say that the Usos definitely are starting to look a little threatened by all of that. So it will be interesting to see that in action tonight. We're going to have more from Chris Jericho on the highlight reel after he trolled everybody online, leading everyone to believe that he was leaving and that his time at WWE had been up and it made sense.
Shows up on Monday night anyway
and hits Dean Ambrose in the back of the head with a giant plant.
Poor Mitch. Rest in peace, Mitch.
Poor Mitch. We're going to we need a shirt for Mitch.
Oh, we do. If we have one for Francesca, we need one for Mitch. 2016 to 2016. Rest in peace. Love Mitch.
But I mean, you can just see it in Ambrose's face that he is just so ready to be done being any kind of mixed personality up there. Like he just wants to get back to the nitty gritty, and I'm excited for him to exact all of that continued into Chris Jericho. I think that those two could battle forever, and I would enjoy every second of that.
They're destined to fight forever, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we're going to see our new number one contender to the U.S. title, Rusev, tonight versus the sensational Zack Ryder, which is what I dubbed him because he's totally different when he comes back to the main roster. So Zack Ryder, for me, is basically like Peter Parker wrestling without the Spider-Man costume. He's just got tons of heart. He's got superpowers. He's got strength. He's got agility. He's got speed. He's got the good looks. He's got the crowd behind him. So is that gonna be enough to take out all that momentum that he's built since WrestleMania? Is that gonna be enough to exact on Rusev tonight? What are your thoughts?
Who knows? I mean, he came close to clinching that number one contendership on Monday night, in which I thought was, the overall battle royal should not have gone as long as it did. It was like a 15-minute battle royal featuring nothing but a bunch of no-namers for the most part. But when it came down to the final four guys, the League of Nations members, Sheamus, Del Rio, and Rusev and Zack Ryder, I love that dynamic because despite the fact that Zack Ryder has been beat down year after year after year, got his IC title taken from him, has basically been non-existent, has been absent from WWE programming, comes back and comes close to beating and upsetting the former U.S. champion Rusev, I thought was a great dynamic. And in the end, it made me feel more hatred towards Rusev. And to Rusev, I forgot to mention this before when you mentioned that he won the Battle Royal on Raw. He had this really good interview on Wednesday with Michael Cole. And he said, oh, congratulations on winning the Battle Royal. And Rusev's like, I already was the number one contender. I've been the number one contender for over a year. This is just kind of, formulaic stuff. This is just kind of the semantics of it and whatever. I've already been the number one contender because I got screwed out of the title a year ago. So I like the fact they're not forgetting that. And his sights have been set this entire time. He's been dealing with Dolph Ziggler. He's been dealing with the League of Nations, all this other crap, the New Day. but now he's getting back to his roots and going back after that championship that he probably should have never lost in his mind, the United States Championship.
Everyone's mind.
Everyone's
mind. He came out on a damn tank. No one will ever forget that he came out on a tank and lost.
Hey, what if he beats Kalisto for the belt and then John Cena comes back and beats him for the belt again? How would you feel about that, RJ?
I would just laugh.
Yeah, that's and that would be the ultimate Cena wins LOL. That is exactly what that is the perfect example of what that means. So,
seriously.
Gentlemen, it has been a fantastic run of shows. We initially started this show here on WWEC Radio to lead up to just talk about everything that was coming up, building towards WrestleMania. That was our initial approach to doing everything here, and it has just been a fantastic ride through WrestleMania to hit those landmarks, to come out on the other side and see all the changes. That is what we wanted to document. We wanted to document the build-up, the stories, the how, the why of NXT, SmackDown, introductions left and right, from new talent to new announcers. It has been the best time to talk about professional wrestling in a long time.
Absolutely.
We saw the dawning of the women's championship in WWE. We saw the debut of countless people that we never thought would, phenomenal performers that we never thought would end up on the WWE roster, let alone the WWE main event within a short time of making a debut. All of these things is exactly why the heart of what we talk about comes from the heart of what the WWE and pro wrestling, pro wrestlers and the entire community that supports them produces. So a lot of respect to everyone in this room and beyond that has anything to do with professional wrestling. We're just running our mouths here. You are all doing the work and providing entertainment for something that we truly love to enjoy. And I enjoy doing all of this with the both of you. So thank you for that.
The last 3 months have just flown by. I think it's been almost 3 months. I don't know exactly what day it was. I think it was February 4th. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was. I can check the archives.
No, we're going back to January.
January? Was it the first week that we came back?
Yeah,
or was it the second week? I don't know.
Second week, yeah.
First or second week, yeah. And then RJ came on board a little later on as well. And this is his final show. We won't be doing the show. I mean, I'll be back in September, but you're gone. Kid's getting his diploma, walking out to Randy Savage's theme song in a couple weeks. That graduates.
That's absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
So the theme song for the show.
I'm doing the AV board, so I can cue up and
yeah.
Or
cue up. I'm not a bad guy.
Doc Wiley, what is that?
Any other final thoughts, RJ?
I think it's been a great couple months. Can't say any more than that. I thought it's been great. So
yeah, we truly wish you the best, my friend.
Thanks.
It will
Wishing you the best in your future endeavors.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I got to say this, too, just before we finish up here. Specifically the topics, like you said, no better time to talk about wrestling. I mean, we've been talking about wrestling since I met you, Tom, back in October. Well, we got the show off the ground back in January, February. Specifically NXT, and look at SmackDown. If we started doing this show in October, we would have run out of stuff to talk about in 10 minutes because SmackDown felt meaningless at the time.
It did.
We could not have jumped on a better time to talk about the Blue brand because it has felt more meaningful and important than it has in a long, long time.
To all of professional wrestling, I think
Absolutely.
it is now the marker, the high water mark for how to produce a specifically wrestling-focused show. You have your entertainment show, you have Monday Night Raw. You got to have that somewhere in your week to build those stories and to make that stuff prominent and push those things forward. But when you're down to your weekly wrestling program, it's SmackDown on any channel across any promotion right now. It's still the best. Even at its most okay, it's still the best competition, some of the best matches. It's always must see. I really can't say enough about what happens between Wednesday night and Friday morning. It is just the best time for watching professional wrestling.
Best day of the week, Thursdays, as I always say, best day of the week. And we will be back, to quote Jeff Hardy, this is not goodbye forever. This is only goodbye for now. Final in-studio show with Mr. Marceau. But Tommy and I will be back in the fall to talk all about it. But in the meantime, this is perfect. I got to close on this note. So I told you last week, Tommy, got a big surprise.
Yes.
And the fact that you said it was your birthday is just perfect timing. Okay? So this show is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Okay? And we saw him on Sunday night. So we got to finish off with this right here, okay? So to close off...
I have no idea.
We got to close off on this note. And this is for you, my friend. I thought you might appreciate this.
Dude.
I got to close. Well, you said your size a couple weeks ago, and I don't know. You said large.
Oh, man, I've been looking at this. This is like one of the best. Oh, man, I can't thank you enough. This is one of the best shirts on shopwwe.com right now. The Bret the Hitman Hart shirt. I have always wanted a Bret the Hitman Hart shirt. I have respected his entire career my whole life. He was one of the reasons I got into wrestling. My other friends, growing up as a little kid, Hulk Hogan. I mean, I was a huge Randy Savage fan just because he was a maniac and he was really colorful. But when it came time to watch wrestling, it was Bret the Hitman Hart. He was just the best example. I will never forget just running around making his guitar noises and trying to put every stuffed animal into a sharpshooter and followed him into WCW. This truly means a lot to me. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Anytime. It's like I said, it's been a great 7-8 months or whatever. So great. And it's funny too because it felt like it was poetic justice because I was sitting in the AC Cafe when I heard someone go, "Hey, nice shirt," and I was wearing my Ambrose shirt. I'm like, "Who was that?" And I thought you were a student because I didn't really pay attention. But then I saw you a couple weeks later, and we were talking about wrestling for like an hour and a half. But it's so perfect because one, you said it was your birthday. I didn't know that when I got it, but we saw him on Sunday night, and I knew you said you liked the shirt. I got it in a large. Like I said,
That's
I don't know
the best damn back of a shirt they've ever made.
Seriously.
It's like, and they've done other shirts like this, and I feel like they've definitely missed the mark a little bit, like just too jammed up with like stuff to say. But like this says it all: the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Guys, that's how I feel about you.
Absolutely.
So,
Feeling is mutual.
When you walk down the ramp, not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
The day before Extreme Rules.
No,
which
it's
Two Saturdays from now, when you walk down the ramp here at Endicott College, you're going to hear this. This is WWEC Radio.
we'll catch you down the road.